with you this afternoon. Primary reason for bringing this forward is changes to that came from HB 374 in the most recent legislative session. The legislature transferred licensing authority for audiologists and speech language pathologists from USBE to DOPL, and so we need to make some changes to 301 to cover that. Essentially, what is being proposed is that we would phase out, we would stop issuing those license areas, and then so we've had to make some changes to the rule to accomplish that. Draft 1 is the proposed draft for that. We had asked Board Member Longacre last time to make a slight technical change to the in committee to that rule. If we could get somebody to make that, we're just proposing a slight change on the background checks. It changes the timing of background checks. If there might be someone who could make that motion, it is on screen, but we're happy to answer questions you have about that rule.
I can make that motion.
Go ahead, Member Hall.
Okay, make the motion that the committee continue and approve R277-301, educator licensing draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading.
Just because we're online, let's just take a vote, voice vote. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Can I have a point of order, Chair? I think that so with that, it sounds like Member Hall made the motion for the whole rule, but it sounds like we also want to maybe consider this amendment before we pass the rule.
Yes, we are.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Oh, yeah, I thought he did make the amendment. He made the motion on the whole rule?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, Chair. So,
yeah, so screen, Member Hall.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you,
You ready?
Vice Chair.
Let me do that. Thank you, Ben. I'm sorry. You said it was on screen, but that wasn't typed up yet at the bottom. Okay. All right. I want to make the motion to amend that the committee strike 2 on line 428 and insert 5.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that the committee strike 2 on on line 428 and insert 5. Vice Chair Bollinger,
Yes.
your vote.
Aye.
Member Hall.
Aye.
And I vote in support of it as well.
I'm here, Chair Carey, I'm here.
Oh,
and I vote
thank
aye.
you, Member Lear. Okay, that passes unanimously, 4 in favor, Member Longacre missing. Are there any questions about not seeing any hands?
Am I the only one that can't hear? My Wi-Fi's, can you repeat that, Joe? It didn't come through clearly.
Yeah. Yeah, I just asked if there were any questions from board members, and if not, just looking for someone to make the motion on 301.
I'll make that motion. I can. Okay, that the committee can, I make the motion that the committee continue and approve R277-301, educator licensing draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second final reading.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that the committee continue and approve R277-301, educator licensing draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. We'll just take a voice vote. Vice Chair Bollinger?
Yes.
Member Lear?
Yes.
And Member Hall?
Yes.
I also vote in the affirmative. That passes unanimously. Board Member Longacre missing. We postponed item number 1, waiting for Member Lear. Let's go to item 1.2, which is R277-322, Local Education Agency LEA Codes of Conduct. Because this is, it started as my application to the committee. It's my understanding now that the committee has collaboratively worked on a new draft, but because I was the board member who initially brought this to the committee, I would like to step down from the position of chair as this matter is considered and ask that Vice Chair Bollinger handle this matter. Is that okay, Vice Chair?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd
Thank
be
you.
happy to. And being as it is a draft that you originally brought forward, would you like to speak to that as we get into talking about it?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. I know that we've spoken about this at length, both on the record and as a group of committee members without the presence of Board Member Hall, who could not make that meeting. There was a draft that was put in. I just want to bring to everyone's attention that, and this was included in the posted draft. I just want to make sure all committee members are aware of it. And Elise, do you have those lines? Was it 114 through 119 that they were struck in one draft that was sent? But
They're in.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware.
I lied. No, maybe not. I lied.
I think maybe it just didn't get uploaded.
Just the right draft, Elise.
I saw them in, I thought.
Yeah, let me check real quick and get it uploaded. Because that was the last one we sent out to the group.
But Vice Chair, outside of that change, I believe that the language reflects the thoughts and working consensus at the time of the members who attended. And I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So are you asking or wanting to make a motion on this draft regarding those lines?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that instead of having everybody search. If everybody saw the proposed change, it would be that I just want to make sure it has it. Is it lines 114 through 119? Is that 11? I'm sorry, can you flip back to the, yep. Yeah, my motion would be that lines 114 through 117 be restored.
So it looks like the motion that you have stated and the one that is posted, I'm going to read off of what was posted, so that the committee reinstate lines 114 through 117 of draft 4A. Does that reflect your motion, Chair Carey?
It does. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Okay, and would you like to add anything else to that before I open it up to the committee to speak to that?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Member Lear.
Thanks. I've kind of gone back and forth on this. I'm not sure of all the other concerns I have with this rule, if this is my greatest one. So I don't want to, I hesitate to belabor it, but I wish, I guess I'd like the Member Carey or Chair Carey to give me a couple of examples maybe of what concerns he has. I think there's some subjective language in this that concerns me. Not I think. I know there's some subjective language in this concerns me. Disrupts could be in the eye of the beholder, and encourages or results in are very different. If results in doesn't come from encouragement, I don't know that that's a staff member's responsibility. Excuse me, but I just maybe like to hear from Chair Carey about what some examples of what concerns him.
May I, Vice Chair?
Yeah, Chair Carey, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to address a situation where we would have a staff member at a school or LEA encouraging planning or organizing an activity or event that would take place during the school day and disrupt school activities. And hopefully this language conveys that those activities would be unapproved and unacceptable.
And such as,
by
what I'm
a member
asking
of-
is, what's your such as in that scenario?
Vice Chair, may I?
Yeah, Chair Carey.
Thank you. Again, I don't think there's a particular parameter. It would just be that, and it would be unacceptable for any member of the staff to encourage them or organize an event that would take place during that time that would be disruptive to the operation of the school.
Do you have an example?
Do you have
or
a
do you
follow?
have-
Sorry.
Yes, I'm thank you, and through the chair so that we can keep moving. Through the chair, is that I'm how would you characterize disruption if there are 3 students in the hall, or if a certain number of students are in the hallway? I'm wondering what your characterization of disruption would be.
Chair Carey, would you like to respond to
Yeah.
that?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I don't think I have a particular scenario in mind. I think the LEA can decide if it was disruptive or not disruptive. So again, I don't have a particular scenario, but rather just wanted to emphasize and make sure that we had language in place that would ensure that LEAs and schools understood that this kind of activity would be unacceptable.
Okay. With that explanation, and I wish we had some examples because I can think of some that could go both ways. But with that, I would be comfortable with this, but I'd like to make an amendment.
Yeah, well, and before you make an amendment, I would like to ask AAG Cooper a question about the interpretation of this. I'm just thinking with the language where it's currently written. I know, for example, I'll give an example where I know that schools, especially high schools, if their teams make it to a state championship, let's say a basketball game or a football game, and it does happen to be in the middle of the school day, they will often plan those events. And if the way that this is written, AAG Cooper, I'm wondering if we were to leave this language or reinstate that language, would that prohibit LEAs or schools from planning those activities where they could go to watch and support their teams? Is AAG Cooper on?
I'm sorry. I had another email come up. Say that again for me, please.
So my question is on these lines 114 through 117, the way I'm
Yes.
reading it, where it says a staff member may not plan, organize, promote, encourage, or participate in an unauthorized activity during the school days that disrupts instructional time or encourages or results in student non-attendance from scheduled classroom instruction. Would this language prohibit, let's say, a LEA from or a school from allowing students to get on a bus and go to a championship football game that's in the middle of a regularly scheduled class instruction time?
No, the way I read it is that the uh, teacher is doing something separate from the school on school time.
Okay. Thank you
But
for that
that's what's prohibited.
clarification.
Sorry about
Okay.
that. Like I said, I was
No,
going
that's
to
okay.
got sidetracked.
No, you're good. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Member Lear.
And I'm looking at this and I'm trying not to overthink it too. I think I don't want to make too much of it, but the 2 words that concern me, four words concern me. On line 115 when it says or participate in, because I think a teacher could participate, or a staff member of any kind could participate in by trying to send students to class. So I think that could maybe be something we'd want school employees to do. The other line or the other phrase that concerns me is on line 116, or results in, because it might be questionable whether a staff member's, it was a staff member's activity that results in the student non-attendance, or is the student non-attendance just for a completely different reason? And I want to be cautious about blaming or using this as an excuse for disciplining staff members when they're merely either trying to help, as in, or participate in, or they're whatever the activity is not the reason that students are not attending. So it, I'm wondering if the committee would consider deleting or participate in. I'm not sure exactly how those words, or participate might be the only word that needs to go. And then results in. And so we just have, if the staff member, I agree with you, encourages something disruptive, not a good thing. And if the staff member is doing something inappropriate, then in his participation, then that's also not appropriate. But I think there's a greater chance of this being used, a caution that it could be used inappropriately. So I'd like to delete both those phrases, and with that, then I would feel comfortable with these lines being reinstated.
Okay, thank you for that. And I want to make sure, Deputy Superintendent Newey, that we're tracking the amendments in order, that it's correct. So if the original motion was that the committee reinstate lines 114 through 117, would then the amendment have to be that they reinstate those lines except striking those pieces? I just want to make sure that we get those in order. Does that make sense?
Member Lear's motion would be the motion to amend the amendment. So it would pre-assume that those lines are reinstated, but then we would restrike those phrases.
Okay. Okay, so we can go ahead and just move forward with Member Lear's motion.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the amendment that the committee strike or participate in and or results in. Any discussion to that motion?
Yeah, Vice Chair, if I may.
Yeah, Chair Carey.
Yeah, I would speak in opposition to Member Lear's amendment, in that if it's an authorized activity by the school, the teacher is free to participate in that activity. This language is limited to unauthorized events or activities that happen during the school day. And it's limited to the individual staff members' participation in those events. In terms of the results in, again, that's an allegation, just like all other allegations. It would need to be proven or established, generally by a preponderance of the evidence. But it is an either or. You don't need to prove the results in order to find a violation of the participation. So I think there are enough safeguards in the makeup of the language. And again, this isn't new territory for our LEAs. This is something where no one is suggesting that the mere allegation would result in a violation. But again, that would have to be established, again, generally by a preponderance of the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I also have another follow-up question on this piece, and this would probably go to AG Cooper as well. So the part of this that says a staff member may not plan, organize, promote, encourage, or participate in an unauthorized activity during the school day that disrupts instructional time. So if an employee goes and participates in an unauthorized activity that disrupts instructional time, let's say, if they leave the classroom, could that be, and get a substitute, is that a disruption of instructional time? If a employee decides to, let's say, go to a concert during that day or something where they're not in the classroom, would that be considered a disruption of instructional time?
That's not how I read it. What I read it is, if there is something going on that is not part and parcel, and I'm almost reading it like you guys have drafted it toward protests and things of that nature that would be disruptive of school, and those are the things that are problems. But getting a substitute and then going and doing whatever, I don't think is problematic. Am I
Okay,
understanding your question correctly? Because I don't feel like I
yes.
am.
No, that I was just wondering if this would hold a teacher accountable for not being in the classroom, because that is disruptive, in my opinion, to an instructional time.
It can be disruptive, but that would be different because that's something that would be authorized, because they would have to get a substitute in. They would have had to have gone through the process and the procedures. This seems to be
Perfect.
geared much more toward something that is not authorized and something that the school would not be okay with.
Okay, thank you. So unauthorized puts that in that delineation. I appreciate that. Thank you,
Correct.
AG Cooper. Member Lear.
No, I don't. I don't have any. Sorry, I just forgot to take my getting back into
Oh.
the. I'm getting into the thing about using my little icons. Sorry. No, I don't have anything else to say. I'm wrestling with it. I think AEG Cooper's um, explanations and sort of lack of concern helps me. So thank you for that.
Okay, so if we can go back to the motion. So the motion currently is an amendment, or to amend the amendment that the committee strike or participate in and or results in. We will do a roll call vote just because we are virtually. So Member Lear.
Yes.
And Member Hall.
No.
Chair Carey.
No.
Okay, and I'm a no as well, so that motion does fail, 3-1 with Member Lear being the yes vote. So we will go back to the underlying motion that the committee reinstate lines 114 through 117 on draft 4A. Is there any further discussion to this motion? So we will go ahead and take a roll call vote for that. Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Hall.
Yes.
Chair Carey.
Yes.
And I'm also a yes, so that passes 4-0 with Member Longacre absent. So we are back to talking about draft 4A. Any other discussion, concerns, comments? Member Lear?
Yeah, I wanted to call attention to a few things that I worked on last week with staff member Canal, specialist Canal, and just so that I don't want to have anybody, and maybe everybody read it really carefully and doesn't need to be kind of reiterated, but I think a couple of things are worth noting, and that is at the end of the rule, toward the end of the rule, there was a mixture of things that a staff member could not really attest to, but that were the duties of the LEA. And we had mentioned this to Greg Cannell, but we just hadn't been clear enough. And so, and the initial draft that we got still had some of those LEA responsibilities mixed in with what the code of conduct said. So I think we now have those appropriately under the LEA responsibilities. And then as I read it one last time Monday, there were some responsibilities that were really not LEA responsibilities, that were superintendent responsibilities, the state superintendent responsibilities, at the very end of the rule, so that we moved those underneath the superintendent himself. And those are now underneath in a separate section. And I feel better about that. I didn't support this rule to begin with. I think it is now better than it was, but I think it is still somewhat difficult because it requires an LEA to take the piece out of the middle of the rule that's supposed to be the model policy and then make it a model policy. I thought the previous rule, it had a separate model policy, was easier for LEAs to use. I still don't think that this was necessary. I think we had an adequate rule in place with a good model policy. And I'm not sure whether I'll support it in the committee today, despite all the work that's gone into it since last October, because I still don't think it was necessary, but I think it's also better than it was, and I didn't want it to pass in the forms that it was previously in. So I'm just kind of still have reservations about the need for this, and some of the language in here feels unnecessarily threatening to me too, that wasn't in the initial draft.
Hey, thank you. I actually want to say I really appreciate the group's willingness to, come together and try to work on the language. I think we've gotten to a decent place. I agree that I don't know that we needed to change the rule specifically, but I also understand that there's been some recent things that would make board members feel better if we were a little bit more explicit in some of them. So I totally understand that piece. There are just a couple of little pieces that I think we may want to address. One is on line 214 and 215. This was added in our last committee meeting because we were having that discussion on making sure contractors and volunteers were held accountable to a code of conduct policy. Now that we've addressed that in the definition of a staff member that already includes contractors and volunteers, I feel like this language is redundant. We've already said you have to have a policy for a staff member, which includes this group. So I would like to make a motion to strike lines 214 through 215. Is there any discussion to that motion that the committee strike line 214 through 215? Okay, then we will go ahead and take a roll call vote. So the motion is that the committee strike 214 or lines 214 through 215. Member Lear,
Yes.
Member Hall,
Yes.
Chair Carey,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. So that passes unanimously 4-0 with Member Longacre absent. There's one other thing I would like to ask a question about. I'm not sure if I have a motion or not yet, but on line 32, I know we have our time certain here, so I'll be real quick. Line 32, I've had a few people reaching out to me, wondering on this. Substantiated means that an allegation has been proven through an investigation or hearing by a preponderance of competent evidence. And I'd like to, AAG Cooper, if you can help us understand, preponderance of evidence is typically a term that we've used. Preponderance of competent evidence. Can you help me understand how that legally impacts this rule?
Preponderance of the evidence basically is just more likely than not. Think about it in terms of 51% versus 49%. Competent evidence, I'm not real wild about the phrasing of it, but it means that there is evidence that is believable, credible, admissible. It's kind of a catchphrase for that. So it's evidence that you could actually consider as opposed to evidence that is not very, very credible, that is not worth, that you would not weigh in such a way to consider it, making your decision based on that.
Okay, thank you. Member Lear.
And this is to follow up to AG Cooper, if that's okay. Actually, I meant to bring this concern forward too. So thanks, Amanda. I kept getting confused with a couple of the rules that we now have before us. So I was going to ask Laura, do you think this raises the bar on evidence? That's what I was wrestling with. It seems to me it does, but I read, I did just a Google search on the difference because it's not something I really was familiar with. And it seems to say that it raises the bar. It can't be a preponderance of all evidence. You can only make it it's only a preponderance of competent evidence. So it seems to raise the bar. Is that how you would characterize it too?
To some extent, yes. I think it tries to make sure that you're making decisions based, you're still using the same evidentiary standard, which is preponderance, but you're trying to be more selective on the evidence that you use. I mean, admin hearings are less formal than, say, a criminal court. And a criminal court, there is admissible evidence and there is inadmissible evidence, and admissible evidence you can't use at all. Here, you can pretty much look at everything, but some of that evidence is really not very credible, so it would not be considered competent. You know, it's the somebody heard something that somebody else said type of thing, and unless we're
Three
going to have,
times,
yeah,
like 3 times removed or something along those lines.
right. And that would not be competent evidence, but it's really hard to unring that bell. So by specifically saying that you've got to rely on competent evidence, you have to be more careful about what you're relying on in making your decisions.
Okay. And it's okay if I follow up, Amanda?
Yeah, please,
Sorry.
Member Lear.
That was your amendment, but now I'm following up. I think it's helpful to kind of remember too that in the preponderance in a civil setting like this, and a preponderance of the evidence, whether it's competent evidence or not, it's the what I was researching a little bit was you still can't make the decision but based solely on, for instance, hearsay. But you can, and that as I understand it, that's true, whether it's a preponderance of the evidence or preponderance of competent evidence. But hearsay can be part of that evidence. Is that how you understand that, Laura? Or
Well,
no?
yes and no. Hearsay, if it's admissible hearsay for whatever reason, whether it be one of the exceptions to the hearsay rules, or if it is something that is coming in that has something independent, yes, it's just like testimony. People think that you can't convict someone just on testimony, but you can, because that is considered competent evidence. So if it fits to where it would be considered competent evidence, even though it's hearsay, you could use that alone, but usually you need more.
Okay, and okay,
You need that corroboration.
And you don't think the competent adds or subtracts from that standard, right? That hearsay exception kind of for administrative procedures.
No, I don't think that's directly related to
Okay.
whether or not, because there are rules that govern whether or not hearsay is admissible. And that's what's going to govern on that. But what it's going to do is it's going to come in, and as you're looking at it, you might not think, even though that hearsay came in under a valid exception, you might not think it's credible and competent. So that's kind of where you're going to say, I don't consider that piece of evidence to be competent, even though it came in under this exception.
Hearsay, even though it's acceptable hearsay.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up on me.
Oh, even though it's acceptable hearsay, I'm just thinking out loud. Thanks.
Right. Acceptable doesn't mean that it's necessarily competent and that you have to accept it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that discussion.
Clear as mud.
Okay. Thank you. We actually are past our time for our time certain at 1:30, but here's what I want to ask is does the committee have further discussion on this that we want to put on hold, or are we ready to make a underlying motion for this draft?
I'm ready to make a motion, Vice Chair.
Okay, Chair Carey, go ahead.
And that motion is that the committee approve R277-322 Local Education Agency Codes of Conduct Draft 4A as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Okay, so the motion is that the committee approve R277-322 Local Education Agency Codes of Conduct Draft 4 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Any other discussion before we take a vote?
That was 4A, and Amanda, and did you say?
Oh, yeah, sorry, draft 4A as amended. Yes, that's correct. Okay, then we will go ahead and take a voice vote. Member Lear.
Reluctantly, yes. Yes.
Oh, looks like.
Could you not hear me?
Oh, sorry, Member Hall,
Yes.
Chair Carey,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. So that does pass unanimously 4-0 with Member Longacre absent. With that, Chair Carey, I'm going to turn that back to you for our time certain.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And I want to thank the committee for accommodating Board Member Green's schedule. She is traveling, but I know that she's put a lot of time and effort into item 1.12, sensitive materials timeline update. This window was the only time that Board Member Green was available, and so we agreed to set this for a time certain. Is Member Green with us online?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Member Green, before you cue this up, let me just ask the committee, this has been in our backup. Are there any specific questions for Member Green? And if not at this time, I would just ask Member Green maybe to cue this up with some background, and then we'll turn it over for questions. Member Green?
Okay, can you hear me okay? Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you. And thanks so much for letting me join your committee. You guys are awesome. You're sounding great, getting work done. But yeah, just a little bit about this. This is something that we have really worked together as a board on for quite a few years now. Something that I keep asking about is to understand kind of the business relationship side of how libraries are created and the procurement of the library materials, books, and resources that end up there. And so I made the motion in May to have a review of that. We amended it to have staff kind of look into what would be required in order to do that in a thorough fashion, what kind of resources they might need, and to make sure that we had a pretty solid direction on what it is that we were looking for. So they were able to bring that back to us in June and presented us with a very thorough kind of strategy and plan on how we could kind of, how do you eat an elephant, strategy. So with that, it did require some funding. And we were able to confirm that that funding is available. And we are looking, the goal of this is to really understand that kind of the industry relationship that we have through the public education lane. So my contention is that we have our librarians that are really, they've been placed in the hot seat. We also have a lot of parents that are being required to do a lot of work in filtering through, literature that has, that we need to address as far as it falls under our sensitive materials review. I don't want to see our sensitive materials continue to be more of a reactive measure. I would rather be one step ahead and get kind of at the root of why this issue may or may not keep arising. The other thing that I foresee happening is continual legislation that gets formed around something that we might not fully understand. And so I feel like we are getting in a good place where things are settling, which is a good thing. And that gives us space to iron out kind of the rest of the issues that still fall around this area. So, and it is with you today. I think it was just a technical error, or not error, but just a technical item that needed to happen where it was on the agenda item underneath another action item. So we separated that out. And thank you so much for hearing this. I do appreciate it. I've tried to reach out and have some other conversations. And we just wanted to keep that moving forward, again, because we're trying to get this done and accomplished before the beginning of the new year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Green. Any questions from members of the committee? Let me just say that I want to thank Member Green for taking the time and the hard work to put this application together. I like the emphasis on, I wrote these words down actually last night, the procurement, selection, and acquisition of books and our public school libraries. I think that is a process that is, it needs to be better understood by members of the board as well as members of the public. This research would allow us to get at the core of that particular system and all the parties and vendors surrounding what certainly is across the country a multi-billion-dollar industry. I know this will focus on Utah, and it is a multi-million-dollar, presumably, industry. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to do that. And I do support the project, but let me ask members of the committee again, are there any questions?
Chair, we do have a few hands up, just so you know, Member Larry and myself.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bollinger. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I do have two questions. One, and I do appreciate, I agree with everything that's said by Member Green and by Chair Carey. I do support this idea, and I think it's a great use of our time and funds. But just a couple questions, just for my own understanding and understanding of the public is, there was a fiscal note of we're looking at using $60,000 of our discretionary funds. What I would like to just know, what does that money go towards? What are we paying for? Are we paying for transportation? Are we paying for travel for staff to get around to school districts? I don't know who the best person to answer that question is, but do we have an answer to that? Through you, Chair.
Oh, thank you. Is Scott Jones on the? He is not. Oh,
Does Davina have an answer to that, maybe?
Thank you.
Davina South Library Media Specialist Teaching and Learning. I was trying to find my little hand raised and I couldn't get it fast enough, so appreciate your patience. So I think the intent of the request for funding was to fund the work of the LEAs. So it would not be staff or within the agency. It would be, if you noticed on the monitoring timeline, there were about 789 LEA hours that were going to be needed to collect the data that we would be requesting. And so we would do some contracts with LEAs to pay them for that time that it would take to curate the information we were requesting.
Does that answer your question, Vice Chair Bollinger?
It does, thank you. I may have one other question, please, Chair.
Please.
My next question is, so it looks like in phase 1 and phase 2, the sample size is 12 districts and 3 charters. So those 12 districts is about 25% of all district schools, but 3 charters is such a small percentage of our charters. How are those numbers determined?
I would
Through you, Chair.
Thank you. I would defer to Member Green or a member of staff who may wish to take that on.
I don't know the answer to that. If I can defer to staff, it looks like maybe Davina has her hand up.
Happy to answer. So to date, we have not had any charter schools report sensitive materials challenges to the state board. They have 100% come from our LEAs, our districts, excuse me. And so those numbers were basically just an aggregation of like the likelihood. First of all, our charter schools, a lot of them don't have libraries. They're doing far less purchasing than the districts are. And so that number was determined based on that information, that data, that we're not seeing a lot of challenges in charter schools, and B, that many of our charter schools do not have libraries, official libraries. They might have a shelf of books that a parent might navigate, things like that, but they don't have the same, library systems, classroom libraries, school libraries, et cetera, that our districts have.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Lear.
Thanks. I had some similar questions, and Davina might be the best person, or I'm also kind of looking for what Emily envisioned. And when I first read this, and I maybe didn't do my homework as thoroughly as I should have, but help me know, and again, between Emily and Davina, help me envision, what does this look like? Because you've said a review and an audit. So I don't know if that means auditors. I think you said that the information would be self-reported. I'm also concerned that only because we haven't had any challenges come from charter schools doesn't necessarily mean that there are not collections there that we need to know about. And so I'm equally concerned that 3 out of 100 and almost 30 charter schools is not a very helpful picture. So I know I'm mixing issues in there, but help me look like what this review would look like, and if we would also be using some of this money to pay for auditors.
Davina, are you up for responding to that?
Yes, happy to answer that. And Board Member Lear, you actually reminded me that one of the things we looked at with the charters was just the number of students. And so we had only a handful of charters that had, more than 1,000 students. So that was another contribution to the decision there. Not without saying that, it would be a simple thing to add more charters if the committee felt like that was an important thing to do. So we would be happy to do that. And then I'm sorry.
The process.
Yes, the process.
The process.
So, yeah, the process. So, but your question about audit. So because we have language in code that defines what an audit is, this would not be an audit. There would not be auditors participating in this process. It would be solely completed by staff and then the work of the LEAs. And so we've shifted that language from audit to monitoring. So we're basically looking at the school library programs across the state and then evaluating them based on the information that we're collecting in these different phases. So it would not be an audit in official capacity in any way.
So, and if I can, Chair, if I could just ask her some questions, is that all right? Or do you want me to go through you?
No, that's fine.
That didn't sound like Joe.
Oh, no, that's fine. My battery's down, so I'm trying to conserve my phone battery.
Oh, sorry. So when I said self-reported, so are you going to provide a series of, 12 or 20 or whatever items that you want information about from LEAs? Is that sort of what this would look like?
Yes, correct. We have started a survey form that would go out to LEAs, asking them for specific information, and then they would report that information on the form that we are in the process of creating. It's not completed yet, but it would be seeking information from the district level, not from the school library itself, although they may need to reach out to the librarian for information. However, most of our catalog systems have somebody at the district level that can access the data that we might need from there, but there's also the purchasing requirements that usually would come from the purchasing department, as you probably know. But
okay, and then in order to get a reasonably representative picture, if districts choose just not to respond, what's your plan for how robust is this? Is this just a surface level sort of informational experience, or are you gonna really dog the 12 that you've chosen? Or I'm just, because we've had that problem with audits, and if I were an LEA that had a lot of things on my plate, which most of them do, I might say this is more than I want to do. and just not respond. And so how big of a deal is that? I'm just looking to see how in depth this is going to be, and that kind of says to me how credible is the information we get.
Before I answer that, I do see Board Member Green has her hand up, and I want to give her a chance to, if she had something she wanted to say to these questions.
For Board Member Green.
Yeah, absolutely. And Davina, I would love to hear your feedback on Member Lear's questions as well. I think the biggest concern I have is that we veer off of kind of the process before the selection itself. I'm really most interested in the industry terms about procurement professionals, publishers, and business analysis. So supply chain, procurement, market structure, collection development, and those business relationships. So what I'm personally looking for, I'll give you some examples. So there's a publishing ecosystem, there's a supply chain, there's a distribution network. You have your channel partners, your distribution channels, your upstream suppliers, which is the publishers. You've got your downstream customers, which is the schools. Then you have your market intermediaries. The procurement of this, these are the terms that the school business officials and purchasing departments use. So you've got, again, that word procurement. You have your acquisition processes, your procurement pipelines, the purchasing workflow, your vendor management, your strategic sourcing, your contracted purchasing, your cooperative purchasing, your purchasing consortiums, and your approved vendor lists. And then you also have your sole source purchasing where applicable, and then you have your competitive procurement processes. So then I can go on to like market structure and collection development. So it's actually this side of the business part of it that we really have to understand. Not just that I know schools have those processes in place. And it's kind of like the business part of it and the marketplace that we are looking to have reviewed. And maybe Member Lear, I don't know if I confused you more, but what I hope is that we keep, there is a very specific lane that we want this review to be in. And so I've named kind of the industry words, and that's what we're looking for.
And if I can respond, I mean, I'm just a little, I'm fine. I think it's worth looking if it's as simple as how do schools get their materials, and do they have a wide open lane to look for the best materials? That's what I would be interested in. If we're thinking there's, I don't know, are you thinking that there's collusion or intimidation or something in buying certain materials, and that's what you're concerned about? Am I missing what your concern is, Emily?
No, it's a great concern. It's a great question. So really it comes from that some believe that the responsibility belongs entirely to, like, say, the local education agencies, that many districts are doing a good job. And I do respect the work of local school boards, administrators, the librarians. So the motions, actually, it's not intended to replace their authority or second guess their professionalism, kind of like what you just said, like I'm looking for something. However, the state board also has a responsibility when statewide policies and legislation continue to evolve in this area. So we're being asked to implement and respond to laws governing sensitive materials, yet we've never fully examined the system that brings those materials into our schools in the first place. So right now, my argument's kind of been that much of our process it's reactive to a certain extent. So books are often identified only after a parent discovers them, They have to read them, files a challenge, begins what can be a lengthy review process, as we've seen. And if librarians are expected to serve as the first filter for the materials that don't meet the Utah law, then we should understand the systems, the standards, the vendors, the training and collection development practices that support those decisions. So in answer, just to clarify, Member Lear, the study is not about assigning blame in any way. It is about understanding the upstream process instead of focusing only on the downstream complaints. So if our current
Yeah.
system is working well, then we reinforce confidence in it. And if there's gaps, then we have the information necessary to make the thoughtful improvements.
And I get that your very last statement was the most helpful of all. And so I get that. And I'm not trying, again, I don't want to overcomplicate this, but I kind of didn't get what you were looking at. And wasn't worried about blame or anything like that. I just, it kind of baffled me what you wanted to know. So that helps. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and can I respond through the chair?
Yes, if we could just keep it brief, Board Member Green. They'll have several items on the agenda.
Yeah, actually, I remember, Lear, what you said is exactly what we keep facing. It's the industry language that we want to look into. So education has its own language. The business that, that exists here, the industry that exists here of procuring books has its own language. And the only way we'll figure out what that relationship is by using that language as we do the deep dives with these specific LEAs.
Thank you, Board Member Green. I don't see any other hands related to this issue, and not seeing any hands, we are ready for a motion. Board Member Hall, do you want to continue your run in terms of making the motions? I can't hear you, but.
I'm trying to get it back up on my screen here, Joe.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Let me pull up Ben's screen. Okay. Okay. All right, I got it back. Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. I want to make the motion that the committee adopt a 2026 timeline policy draft 1. Is this the motion that we're making?
Yes.
Okay, that the committee adopt a 2026 timeline policy draft 1 on first reading and appropriate $60,000 from board discretionary funds for implementation and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
So the motion before the committee is that the committee adopt the 2026 timeline policy draft 1 on first reading and appropriate $60,000 from board discretionary funds for implementation and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. And let's just take a roll call vote. Board Member Lear?
Yes.
Board Member Hall?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bollinger?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. That passes unanimously with Board Member Longacre missing. Board Member Green, thank you for taking the time. Please, safe travels on your journey back home.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. And then I think we can just resume our normal line of business and resume with item 1.5, R277-306. And Director Rasmussen, I think you're still on deck. Is that correct?
Yeah, we need to do actually 1.4 first. We didn't get to that one.
Oh,
But that would be the next one if that's all right.
yeah, please. Let's do 1.4 R277-304, teacher preparation programs, and Director Rasmussen.
Okay, so this is the teacher prep programs rule. As you mentioned, staff is proposing amendments to the requirements for a couple of the teacher prep programs here. You can see the changes here, and then also there's some technical changes as far as language in the special needs program. Also some changes proposed for the CTE programs as well. We have Lisa McLaughlin and Malia Height that can answer any questions you have on the rule, but other than that, this staff would recommend passing draft 1.
Thank you. I don't see any hands, but I do have one question, and it doesn't relate to any of the amendments. But on line 28, we're talking about in line 27, clinical experience means a structured opportunity in which a program candidate is mentored by a licensed educator. And it just got me thinking, and I know this is the CTE, and is this the CTE? Yeah. And I thought, are we using mentored because this is CTE, and when it's not CTE, we use taught and teaching? Or is there a measurable difference? And if so, have we defined that anywhere when we use mentored versus teaching or taught? That would be my question. And Dr. Hyde, I see you nodding, so I'm going to direct the question to you if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Malia Hyde, Executive Coordinator of Educator Licensing. And Lisa is certainly able to answer this question and perhaps give some more detail if required. When we're talking about mentoring within the aspect of teacher preparation, we're talking about an expert teacher who is mentoring a student teacher. And so their job isn't to teach that person how to become a teacher. That the student teacher has already completed all of their coursework at a university, for example. But within a clinical experience, that's when they're doing their student teaching and they have a master teacher that they can bounce ideas off of, get feedback on how they're doing in the classroom. And so we're talking about a mentoring relationship. And that mentoring relationship is actually well defined in board rule, and it is in R277 308 we have an entire board rule on mentoring. And that talks about the relationship between a master teacher and either a new teacher. Specifically, this is a new teacher, but within the context of the rule we're discussing today, it's with a student teacher, the mentoring.
Okay, I want to thank you for that. Thank you, Dr. Height. I don't see any hands from the board. If there are no questions, we are ready for a motion.
I'm happy to make a motion unless Rod's going to keep going with it.
I'm passing the baton.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
pick up the next one. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I would like to, thank you, Chair. I would make a motion that the committee approve R277-304 Teacher Preparation Programs Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that the committee approve R277-304 Teacher Preparation Programs Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Well, let's do a roll call vote. Board Member Lear?
Yes.
Board Member Hall?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bollinger?
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously with Board Member Longacre absent. Okay, Director Rasmussen, I think we're now ready for item 1.5, R277-306, Educator Preparation Programs for School Psychologists, Audiologists, Speech Language Pathologists, Speech Language Technicians, Counselors, and School Social Worker. Director Rasmussen?
Yeah, so this chair is another rule that comes from HB 374, where the board no longer has licensing authority over audiologists and speech language pathologists. Essentially, we need to amend this rule to take out the prep programs for those two former license areas. And then we're also recommending a small amendment in the prep program rule for speech language technicians, because they are part of their training involves a licensed speech language pathologist. We've actually are going to request that someone from the committee make a motion to amend on that to clarify the language for that specific section. We had asked Member Longacre to make that in June, but if one of you could make that motion, it's just we can put it on the screen for you, just to clarify that the person providing training for a speech language technician can be either someone with a USBE license that's previously issued or now one issued by DOPL. If there's any questions, we are happy to answer those.
I'm not seeing any questions, so we need the first
wait.
motion made first to amend. Oh, I'm sorry. Board Member
Wait,
Lear?
I was slow on the uptake.
Okay.
I'll skip the icon. So I've wondered this, and this just happens to be the first occasion to talk about it, Ben. So if a speech language, and I recall having some of these individuals who we've had investigations, professional practices investigations over the years. If they're licensed by DOPL and don't have an educator license, then does the board, what authority, if any, does the board have over these individuals and their licenses?
I think our authority would be to refer them to DOPL if we think they've committed misconduct.
Okay, and then whatever DOPL decides is what goes.
Yeah.
And I think we've had a few of these over the years, a handful maybe. So
Yeah,
that's
we have.
yeah. So that's interesting. Okay, that's helpful. That was one of the thoughts I had. Thanks.
You know, building off Board Member Lear's question, the technicians and DOPL, how many speech language technicians do we currently have in the state, approximately?
Dr. Height probably could answer that.
Yes, Chair, if I may. We do not have a lot. I know it's several hundred, but I would have to look and see exactly the number. I'm happy to provide that to you if you'd like.
Maybe if we're just prepared to answer that at the full board. I was just curious based on the answer that was given.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any hands. We need two motions, one on the amendment and then one on the item itself.
And make the motion on the amendment.
Okay.
That the committee
Thank you,
strike line.
Member Hall.
Oh, no problem. That the committee strikes lines 98 through 100 and replace with the following. B, require significant experiences under the supervision of an individual holding. I, a professional speech language pathologist license area of concentration, or I, a speech language pathologist license issued by DOPL.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Member Lear.
I do recall I did have, this is the only place in the rule, I think, where DOPL is mentioned. I think that being the case, we should spell out the Division of Occupational Licensing there, which is sort of a non-substantive change, but I think it would be important for anyone reading the rule. A minor.
Okay.
Sorry about
The motion
that.
does belong to the body. I don't see any objection. So we will consider this a technical change. And the motion before the committee is that the committee strike lines 98 through 100 and replace with the following. B, requires significant experiences under the supervision of an individual holding. I, a professional speech language pathologist license, area of concentration, or I, a speech language pathologist license issued by the Division of Occupational and Professional Licensing. Let's take a roll call vote with that. Board Member Lear?
Yes.
Board Member Hall?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bollinger?
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously 4-0 with Board Member Longacre absent. Let's go to item 1.6, R277-101,
Chair,
Public
point of
participation.
order. I think we need to do
Yeah.
the underlying motion
the
still. I apologize.
Thank you, Vice Chair. No, don't. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. We're ready for a motion on the underlying matter.
All right. All right, I make the motion that the committee approve R277-306 educator preparation programs for school psychologists, audiologists, speech and language pathologists, speech and language technicians, counselors, and school social workers. Draft 1 is amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you, Member Hall. The motion before the committee is that the committee approve R277-306 educator preparation programs for school psychologists, audiologists, speech language pathologists, speech language technicians, counselors, and school social worker. Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Let's do a roll call vote. Board Member Lear.
Yes.
Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yes.
And I am a yes. That passes unanimously with Board Member Longacre absent. Now let's proceed to item 1.6, R277-101, public participation in Utah State Board of Education meetings. This is brought to us by continuation and Director Rasmussen.
Okay, so this is up for its 5-year review. We need to take action on this by the August board meeting. This simply sets forth rules for public participation in your meetings. Staff recommends no changes at this time, but just simply recommends that the board continue it.
Any discussion to this rule? I don't see any hands, but I do have one question, perhaps two, but I understand the time and I want to keep this. If it requires more time, we can do it at the board meeting, but our 2-minute time limit that we currently use at board meeting, is that set forth? I didn't see it in the rule. Is that set forth in a policy, or is that just historical and by practice that we do the 2-minute time limit on public comment?
My understanding is they set that based on how many people are asking to speak and how much time they have. I don't think it's set in stone anywhere.
Okay, so would that be at the chair's discretion?
Yes.
Okay. And then this is for the AAG, this particular question. When someone wants to read from materials that they allege are found in our public schools, historically, they begin to share what's in the material. The chair generally politely stops them and talks about our rules of decorum at USBE, and they are invited to submit their remarks in writing to the board. My question is, by limiting their submission to only members of the board, are we treating their speech differently from everyone else who wants to provide public comment, where their public comment is recorded on video? People can go back and watch that public comment, where when they're only responding to the board, the only individuals aware of their comment are members of the board. Are we permitted to treat that content differently? And if the answer is yes, are we treating it in the least restrictive means possible, or should we be directing individuals to put their, I'll call it the sensitive comments that violate our rules of decorum, in writing and then post it in backup?
I think that the comments that they're making are considered what they're actually saying as opposed to what they're reading. And so they're not being treated any differently if just by not being allowed to read whatever, if I'm understanding your question correctly. Say if somebody wanted to read something out of one of the sensitive materials that somebody's asking to be pulled from the schools, I think that not allowing them to read that is not the same as keeping them from commenting about that. I don't see any reason that you could not supplement the record with that printout if it was provided to you. But I don't think that you're required and probably should not allow them to just read, because that's going to take them outside of the time frame that you've got for everyone anyway.
No, I see that argument. I guess I was just asking, if they say this is offensive, this is pornographic, it doesn't belong in the third grade, and they want to submit their comment as evidence as such by sharing that material. And I agree with you. It shouldn't be shared during the board meeting, but I'm thinking that, do we include it in backup? Otherwise, the only people that are aware of it are members of the board versus the public.
No, I think if what they're trying to say is that this is material that shouldn't be included in a third grade book, then they need to follow the process. And making a public comment, which is not evidence in that process, is not particularly helpful. So if that's what they're trying to do, they need to follow the appropriate process. They do have the right to come in and tell you they've got concerns, but that's not going to be considered evidentiary in the same way. So they need to follow the process on something like that.
Well, maybe they're not interested. Maybe they're not interested in removing the book, but they just want to bring awareness. I understand what you're saying. Like, I don't think it's part of the sensitive materials process, but certainly they have a right in public comment to bring it to the fore and share it. Yeah, so I'm not ready to make a motion on this yet, but I do have concerns that we are treating speech differently, politically protected speech. And I'll have to consider this a little bit more, but I do appreciate the feedback, A.G. Cooper. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. And if you've got something that you want me to take a look at more specific, certainly have the board ask us and we can try to get you a more defined answer.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on this topic? If not, we are ready for a motion.
Chair, I'm happy to make a motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
I would make a motion that the committee continue R277-101, public participation in Utah State Board of Education meetings, and forward to the board for approval.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that the committee continue R277-101, public participation in Utah State Board of Education meetings, and forward to the board for approval. Let's take a roll call vote. Member Lear?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bollinger?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes unanimously with Board Member Longacre absent. Let's go to item 1.7, R277-409, public school membership in associations. And Director Rasmussen.
Yeah, so this is another rule that's up for its 5-year review. This basically governs the High School Activities Association or other associations that public schools may be members of. No amendments recommended at this time, just recommending consideration of continuing it for 5 more years.
Okay. Any questions? Oh,
No, go ahead. Sorry, I'll just make the motion when you're ready.
I don't see any hands, so I think we're ready for a motion.
Let me find that motion. I move that the committee continue R277-409, public school membership and associations and forward to the board for approval.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that the committee continue R277-409 public school membership and associations and forward to the board for approval. We'll do a roll call vote. Member Lear,
Yes.
Member Hall,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bollinger,
Yes.
and I am a yes. That passes 4-0 with Board Member Longacre missing. You know, we are at item 1.8, and unfortunately, I have a conflict that requires me to attend that. So I did speak with Vice Chair Bollinger in advance and said maybe something I couldn't get out of. So with that, I would like to turn the chair over to Vice Chair Bollinger to continue through the end of the meeting. Vice
Thank you,
Chair,
Chair.
thank you so much for that.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so we will go to action item R277-121, Board Waiver of Administrative Rules Amendment. And it looks like Deputy Superintendent of Policy, Elise Newey. You're going to queue us up on this?
Yeah, sure can. So just to remind the committee, so back in May, I believe, your committee saw some charters come to the committee to ask for a waiver from board rule. And during one of those discussions, I believe it was board member Longacre made the motion that we bring 121. So this is the rule that governs those waivers to the committee to include a line that would require that if a charter comes before the committee to ask for a waiver, that they also bring a member of the school, state, or of their authorizer. The process requires that a charter school go to their authorizer to get that permission first before coming to you all to ask for that waiver. And so if I can make an assumption, I think it's to inform that conversation about what the authorizer had asked and what they know about the conversation prior to coming before your committee. So you'll see those changes on line 75 through 77, that if a charter school requests a waiver under this rule, a member of the board of the school's authorizer shall attend the standing committee meeting and the full board meeting to present the authorizer's recommendation and support the waiver request. So that's just being brought to you by a request from one of your members.
Thank you, appreciate that. I do
Sure.
want to make a comment on this, but I'll open it up to the committee members first. Member Hall.
I just wanted to ask real quick, Chair, didn't we kind of come to an agreement on this that we were going to maybe not move forward with this?
Yes, you're
Okay.
correct. We did have a chance. I know there were several of us back in June when we met. We had a chance to meet or chat with the new executive director of the State Charter Board, Stacy Hutchings. And with new leadership, and they have several new board members, we had the discussion of, giving them a chance to show that they want to be supportive. I know as a committee, we were kind of frustrated because we had questions to ask of our authorizers and didn't get our questions answered. And I think that's where this kind of came from. So yes, I agree. This is a rule that I think personally at this point, I'm okay just taking no action on at this point. And if we don't take any action, then it will just kind of fall off. If we ever need to bring it back, we could bring it back. Am I understanding that correctly, Elise? Okay,
That's
I see her nodding. Okay, so yes, Member Hall, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. And Member Lear, did you have any comments on this?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, so with that, no, did you have something to say?
No,
You
I
were-
just say I support that action. That sounds
Okay.
great.
So inaction, yes, our inaction.
Or inaction. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm all big
So
on
with-
inaction.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so with that, we'll take no action on R277-121, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. This is action item R277-211, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission, Rules of Procedure, Notifications to Educators, Complaints, and Final Disciplinary Actions. So this is a draft that's come forth. It looks like Chair Carey had an updated draft on draft 3, and that's what's bringing being brought before the board. So I will open it up to the committee for discussion and or motions.
Can I just clarify something real quick first?
Sure, go ahead. Yes, please.
There were three drafts submitted here. Draft one is actually the staff draft, which it was meant to implement the Senate bill that requires the board to determine when educators that are suspended, when they can remain in the public schools or what work they can do in the public schools. So there's limited amendments in draft one that comes from staff. Draft two and draft three were what Chair Carey and a couple other board members wanted to bring forward.
Thank you for that clarification, Director Rasmussen. So for us to be compliant with the law, draft one is what's coming from staff, and then Chair Carey added additional amendments. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Member Lear.
And so, Ben, would you be willing somewhere between June and now? I kind of just, I think I heard that and then I forgot that. So would you mind showing us those? And then before you discuss those briefly, just review those with us. Would it be your opinion this is minimally what's necessary in this rule to comply with the with I think it was 312 HB 312? Is that right?
Yes. So there's just one change, if I may, in draft one, and that's what you see on lines 312 through 315. Basically, the way the law is set up, if someone is suspended, it depends on what you do, depending on what the suspension is for. But some can't do anything in the public school. Some, it seems to suggest they can, and some it calls on the board to determine what should happen if they don't fall into certain categories. And so basically what we've done is we've put a requirement that UPAC will make an initial recommendation that will go into the consent to discipline, and then that will come to the board for approval. And so in that way, the board would be acting on that provision of the law. And so what you see there is basically adding a requirement that a consent to discipline that an educator signs will address those provisions of the law to make sure that it's clear in their consent to discipline what they can or can't do in a public school after a suspension.
Okay. And what seems to be, if I can proceed, is that okay, Chair?
Yes, please.
So then I'm assuming that the restrictions then would be provided by, or proposed restrictions subject to the board's acceptance would be proposed by staff. Is that?
I'm intending to put the question to UPAC and to ask them, what do you want us to take to the educator? So in those cases, it would actually kind of be a two-step determination for UPAC. Do you want to recommend a suspension? And if so, if it's not clear under the law, we would then ask them, what, if any, should be the restrictions on non-licensed work in public schools?
So just to flesh that out a little bit, I don't remember the exact language in the bill, but I think it's something like administrative. Did it say administrative offenses? So maybe the exact word's not necessary for my question, but you would then propose that you would have that discussion with the UPAC members to say in their characterization, in their evaluation, would they say whatever the offenses were administrative versus something else that
I think staff would determine that, but then ask them what the consequence should be. I think that what the nature of the suspension is more a matter of law, but the bill has certain areas where determinations have to be made depending on where the offenses lie. And so that's where UPAC would make a recommendation, is if it was one of those gray areas where it's not specifically classified in the bill.
Then your answer is UPAC would make that recommendation.
Yes.
To first the educator and then to the board, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because that was one of my really concerning questions about the bill itself, is who would do that work and how would that be done? And so
that would also allow the educator to request a hearing if they thought that that was an unfair recommendation. That would be
Yeah.
something that could be discussed in a hearing as well.
In your opinion, if I can continue for a minute, Amanda, is that okay?
Yes, please.
If, in your opinion, Ben, how much additional work, discussion, time is that going to take? And what'll be your level of preparation to be able to address that knowledgeably? Do you have a sense of that?
I would suspect that in a typical case, it would take another 5 minutes of discussion for the commission. I could be a little more depending. I don't know. We haven't had these come up yet because it only applies to cases
Right.
that were first
Perspective.
filed after May 1st.
Uh-huh.
And it might take a little work for the attorneys getting ready to present the case to give some thought to that. They would need to add that to their reports, things like that. So there is some administrative legwork involved.
And just one more, I know we're kind of thinking out loud or speculating, so I don't want to, and I'm certainly not going to hold you to this because we're going to have to see how it plays out. But then I lost my train of thought. In terms of, so do you think you would gradually be creating a rubric or we've used that before in another context, so I don't want to confuse, but a rubric or a list or a pattern of what kinds of things are considered administrative versus something else? Is that kind of what how you think it would develop?
It's a good question. I hadn't given a lot of thought to that, but might be something that we would add into the matrix that we keep for suspensions as to what restrictions are placed there. So we
I
can see
think
what we've
that,
done in comparable cases.
so I think that consistency would be really important, I think, in as this plays out, as this develops, I think.
Yeah, I
Right.
think that we would be held to that on review if there were appeals.
Right. Thanks. Okay, and then I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready, Vice Chair.
Go ahead, Member Lair.
I move that the committee approve R277 -211 draft 1, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission, UPAC Rules of Procedure, notification to educator, complaints, and final disciplinary actions. Sorry, that's where you put in the draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Okay, so the motion is that the committee approve R277-211, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission Rules of Procedure, notification to educators, complaints, and final disciplinary actions, draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Do we have any discussion to that motion? I would like to speak in here because in our backups, you notice that we do have this draft 1 that's recommended by staff that's required basically with the code change, as Director Rasmussen mentioned. There were 2 other drafts that Chair Carey had put in. As I've read through, I did consider draft 2 and draft 3. Draft 3 has even more additional adjustments and changes. I just wanted to speak to the drafts because they've been in the backup. So I definitely want us to at least acknowledge those. Some of the concerns that I have with that is number 1, we are in the middle of not 1, but 2 audits on UPAC. We have our own USBE audit taking place. We also have an OLAG audit taking place on UPAC, and I'm really hesitant to make any changes to our rules if they're not comprehensive with all of our other rules. Sometimes I think we have unintended consequences if we're not looking at it in the whole or holistically with all of our partners. So that's my first concern about making any of these changes that are on these drafts. And my second concern is I feel like many of those are a management role and not a governance role. And I know that as a board, we've really been talking about what is our lane with governance versus management. And I feel like some of these amendments really do get into more of the superintendent's role in overseeing UPAC and takes away some of the executive director role of that, basically bypasses it when code Utah law says that it's the role of the director to do certain things. So I'm just concerned about some of those changes. And so I do support moving draft 1 moving forward. And after those audits come back, if we do have additional changes that do need to be made, I'm happy to address those. I know one of the things we all want to improve is the timeline for how long it takes for anything to, an educator to go through the process. It's a lot because we have a lot of referrals, and if everything's investigated, it slows down that process. So just a few comments there, and I appreciate you listening to me. Member Hall.
I wanted to ask if it would be appropriate to make a suggestion that maybe we do move, we continue this in our August board meeting, just so that we have all the members of the committee and we can have people speak to those things. Just knowing that there's two other drafts that are there, just to give a fair opportunity for folks to be able to speak to that. Would that be appropriate to make a motion to continue these UPAC items in August?
So you're trying to, to the committee?
Yes.
You could absolutely make that motion. Let me ask, Director Rasmussen, is there, as far as, I just want to make sure as we're trying to stay in compliance with the law changes, can you speak to the delay? Because my inclination is, let's pass this, and then there's still there's a full board agenda where those other drafts could still continue to be addressed. But that's just, Director Rasmussen, can you speak to the timeline of the law and if that would delay our compliance with law if we were to push it to our August?
We would need to do rulemaking to implement the law by November 1st, is my understanding. So we have a couple months if you really wanted to push it out. We will be bringing one other rule, I believe, to comply with that rule, that law forward, the rule on the hearings, just to make sure that we are covering that issue in hearings if they come up. But we specifically brought this one forward now because Board Member Carey had wanted to bring the rule forward, and we didn't want to bring it up twice.
Okay, but what I'm hearing you say is that you do have to bring this back anyways?
Well, no, we're going to bring another rule.
Oh, not this one,
Not
a different
this
rule.
Yes.
Okay, I see. So, Member Hall, you're welcome to if you would like to make a motion, that's absolutely in order. If you'd like to make a motion to move this to our August committee meeting, you're absolutely welcome to make that motion.
And if I do make the motion, can I include the other UPAC items that are there, the 9, 10, and 11, those items? Or do I have to do them all individually?
It's up to him, I think, how he does that.
Yeah, I think it's up to you.
I just kind of want to throw them all in there if we could. So I guess that would be item 9 and 10 and 11 on the agenda, the 6001, 6002, and then the current 211.
I think we should handle them separately.
Do you think so? Okay.
I personally do. Well, sorry, I just
it's okay.
Out of turn once again.
It's okay. That's just a suggestion that I was making, and I thought it'd just be good to get all 5 of our committee members on board, on deck to discuss these things at the same time. And I do agree with you, Amanda. I think there's a lot of changes that are being, a lot of things that are happening right now with UPAC, and the hesitation to make any big changes it's a big deal. But I'd like to be able to discuss it with the whole committee if it's possible.
Yeah. Okay. So the motion is that the committee continue items 1.9, 1.10, and 1.11 to the August meeting. Member Lear, you have your hand raised.
I do. Well, first, to my earlier interruption, I think we probably, well, when it's phrased that way, it doesn't feel as sort of inappropriate. That feels like an appropriate way to continue these items. I guess then maybe what I'd like to do is speak to these so that at least it's on the record of why I will be voting no in terms of continuing, and especially when it says to the August meeting. If that's okay, is this a good time to do that, Amanda?
Yes, please.
Okay. I too have a lot of concerns about R277211, to start with that, since we're going to lump these all together. I have a number of concerns. I have 3 or 4 pages of concerns that I won't make you listen to on a summer afternoon. But let me mention 2 or 3 of them that are my greatest concerns. First, I've said continually, in addition to the pending audits, the ongoing audits, I have wanted to have collaboration on changes to UPAC rules. That's what took place a number of years ago when there were significant changes, and it was hard work, but it was well worth it because I think that the rules have endured and done quite well for more than 10 years in serving the board. So I really, really, before we start making significant changes to the UPAC rules, in addition to seeing what the results of the audits are, which we know won't be finalized until the very end of the year, if not January. I also would like to have some collaboration with some of the stakeholders, similar to what we had in one of our lawn licensing meetings. I'm also concerned that in making these changes, we have to address the workload and the realism of what we have in terms of funding and personnel and the significant changes turnover we're experiencing right now. So some of the changes in these rules, I think, would increase the existing workload. At the same time, we see our employees, and especially our experienced employees, dwindling. And the third, another concern I have is some of these changes are complicated by ongoing cases. So, for instance, the change that would set us a hard, fast 6-month timeline is a complicated change to make in light of the fact that we have probably 50-ish guessing cases that are in the pipeline. So that would concern me greatly too. And then finally, I feel like we need to look at these rules holistically, not one at a time, and make sure that the changes we might make in one rule don't confound another rule. So those are just some of my really big overall concerns. I was prepared with 20 or so amendments just for starters in R277-211, but I won't go into those. I just have grave concerns, and I especially have concerns in this motion that they'd be continued to the August meeting when subsequent meetings might be more appropriate.
Hey, thank you, Member Lear. Member Hall, did you have any other comments on this motion?
I don't disagree with Member Lear. I just think that if we were going to make the decision to, to make other motions or to do more work, it'd be great to make it as a committee, as a full committee together. So that's the only reason I want to continue those, to give us an opportunity. This committee's proven that they can come together to do good work. It just happened around 322 and to do what's necessary. So I just wanted to have all 5 at the table to make the decisions moving forward when it comes to these UPAC rules. I think we can definitely do it and do the right thing here too as well.
Amanda, given that explanation, could I move to amend this motion by Member Hall?
Yes, that's in order. Are you wanting to divide? Like you want to vote on individually?
I'm just I spoke too quickly. Now my brain's thinking through this. So just give me about 10 seconds to just
Yeah, and while you're thinking about that, because there's only 3 of us, I would like if AAG Cooper can maybe help us make sure that we're in compliance with our own rules. Since we only have 3 members here, typically with all 5 members, we have to have 3 votes for something to pass. With 3 of us here, is it a majority, or do we still have to have 3 votes to pass a motion?
Majority of the quorum, so 2 votes.
Yeah.
2 votes. Okay.
Oh,
thank you.
In light of that, I don't have a motion to make. Let's just go ahead and vote on Rod's motion.
Yeah, I actually would like to make a motion to divide. I would like to divide and divide it with 1.9 as one item and then 1.10 and 1.11 as a separate motion. And the reason for that is there are some
Thanks.
things that I think do warrant more discussion and others that I just am not in a place to vote for in light of the fact that we're having some audits in place for item 1.9. So
And probably
the
do that without
motion
objection.
is there any objection to dividing?
No.
Okay, thank you for that, Ben. You saved us a vote. So let's start with the motion first that the committee continue item 1.9, actually, yeah, 1.9 to the August committee meeting. Any
Okay.
discussion to that motion?
Okay, with that one alone, I would like to amend that motion standing alone. Are you ready for that?
Sure.
That the committee continue item 1.9 to a subsequent committee meeting. I think that's the right word. Would that be the right to a upcoming subsequent committee meeting?
So
Because
what, can you explain that a little bit?
yes, I don't know that it sounds like we have till November to be in compliance with the law. So if it's not ready, and I can be talked out of this. I'm just more looking to Ben for guidance. If we bring both the rules together, both the rules together to be in compliance with 312, would that be better?
And I'll just, if I can just point out, and I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, I think we were planning to bring these rules initially in August or September. I can't remember which.
Okay.
So we're going to bring the other one pretty soon. So I think either way you state that it would allow us to do what we need to.
Okay. I just feel better about that so that we're not locked into August is what I'm saying. If it turns out that that's not the best date. So yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay, so the motion would be we're just voting on the amendment, not the actual motion to continue, just the amendment to make it be that the committee continue the item 1.9 to a subsequent committee meeting. So we are just only adding in or replacing August with a subsequent meeting, just so we know what we're voting on.
Thanks.
Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and vote on the motion to amend. Member Hall?
Yes. The motion to amend to a
Yes,
subsequent
just the
meeting?
motion to amend.
Yes, that's
Yes.
fine. You know what, guys? My computer's trying to force me to do these updates required. It says restart in 5 minutes. So if you lose me, I'll be back. Okay.
Then we won't have a quorum, Rod.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
then you'll just
sorry,
jump on your
guys.
phone, Rod.
I'm so sorry.
Hey, Member Lear.
And I would be a yes.
And then I will also be a yes on this. So that passes unanimous 3 in favor with Chair Carey and Member Longacre absent. So now we're going to actually vote on the motion that the committee continue item 1.9 to a subsequent committee meeting. Any discussion to this motion? And I'm actually going to actually speak against this because I feel like the changes that are already in draft 1 are the ones that need to be addressed. And if we continue this, I'm still going to have the same opinion that we need to do all of the UPAC changes in policy together after we have both audits in place. So I don't feel like even if we postpone this to a different meeting, that I would be ready to make changes to it without that other information. So I'm actually going to speak against the motion to hold this one. But that's just my own opinion. So any other discussion to that motion? Okay, so the motion is that the committee continue item 1.9 to a subsequent committee meeting. Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Lear?
No.
And I am also a no. So that motion does fail 2-1 with Member Hall being the yes vote and Chair Carey, and Member Longacre absent. So with that, we'll go to the underlying motion that was made, that the committee approve R277-211 Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission Rules of Procedure, Notification to Educators, Complaints, and Final Disciplinary Actions, Draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading. Any further discussion before we take a vote? Okay, Member Hall.
I'm a no.
Okay, Member Hall is a no. Member Lear.
No. Or no. Wait a minute. Let me.
She's a double no.
This would be to move draft 1 forward.
So draft, and we've decided.
This is the one that the staff has recommended.
Right. And so I would say yes. There we go.
Okay. And I am also a yes, so that does pass.
Sorry, I was trying to remember which draft we were talking about. Thank you.
No,
for your
you're fine.
patience.
We have had lots of drafts today, so you're okay. So that does pass 2-1 with Member Hall, the no vote, and Chair Carey and Member Longacre absent. So now we will go to our motion. I had divided, so the motion that's left over would be to postpone, or let's see. There was one that we were going to move. There was a motion that
Right.
Member Hall had made to divide, right? So we would be voting on that the committee continue item 1.10 and 1.11.
Right. And if you lose me, I'll be back. I don't know if it's going to update my
Okay.
computer though.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
That's so lame, Rod.
I plugged in my computer and that's what set it all off. It
Never do
decided, yeah.
It happens all the time, Rod. Let's make sure that we get this motion because we did split it. So the motion is that the committee continues items 1.10 and 1.11 to the August committee meeting. Any discussion to this motion?
I do have some discussion,
Okay,
and now I
Member-
got my, go ahead.
Member Lear.
Erin. I do not support continuing these items. I feel like, especially after our discussion last week about governance versus management, that these items are very much management items and not governance items. And holistically, they are not just pieces of them. I couldn't take pieces out of them and turn them into governance motions. And as I looked through the definitions of the purposes of policies, the purposes of rules, that these do not fit the purpose. These proposed policies don't fit the purposes of the policies, and they don't fit the purposes of rules. And they are, in fact, I believe, very much management issues that should be dealt with by the superintendent. Superintendent or the executive director of UPAC is the superintendent's employee, and the language for selecting UPAC members is directly per statute under the superintendent. So I believe those should all be management discussions. And if the board wants to weigh in on those with the superintendent, the board has a way to do that as a board by discussing with the superintendent what their some of their concerns or directions for both the conflict of interest proposal and also the staff directives. So we have a way to address that with the superintendent, and she is firmly in charge of these issues. So I oppose these policies as proposed. I oppose them in a holistic way, and there's no point in, as I'm concerned, as I speak about this, there's no point in furthering the discussion.
Okay, thank you. I guess I do have I have a question. Maybe this is directed to, and I don't know which staff member, or maybe even AAG Cooper. I'm not sure who to direct this to, but as I'm reading to the point that Member Lear is bringing up, as far as some of these pieces, especially in 6001 when we're talking about maybe like a conflict of interest, those types of things. Part of me thinks that that would be more appropriate in a rule versus a policy, where a policy is kind of how we work versus where I see this, it's almost like we are now writing policy for UPAC, where, to Member Lear's point, the superintendent's is tasked with overseeing UPAC. Is a policy an appropriate place for this content, or would a rule be more appropriate?
If I may, on board policy 6001, I had felt that was appropriate for policy. If the board's not inclined to enter into this realm, I'd probably have UPAC adopt this particular policy on their own for their own governance. I think there's going to be some sort of a performance note or something in the audit that comes out on this. And so I think this is something good to do proactively in some fashion or other. But it doesn't necessarily have to be in policy to accomplish that. And to Board Member Lear's concerns, that's something that we could just as easily accomplish through an internal policy or through something that UPAC adopts. So I will say that 6001 is something that's already been vetted by UPAC and by some other groups. And so I think that's something that we'll pursue in some avenue, but it doesn't have to necessarily be in this format.
Okay, thank you. Member Lear.
And to that point, I had not thought of that possibility, Ben, and I think it would be an excellent way to go. I don't think UPAC has many policies, probably, but for that to be something that you or the superintendent ask the selected UPAC members to do, I think it'd be completely appropriate and responsible. And if you want to handle it through that, I would be supportive. I'm not saying it doesn't need to happen at all. I think that's something that could be internally discussed. And if you feel like it's necessary, then I would support that wholeheartedly. I just don't feel like it's something that the board should be imposing, given that these individuals are selected by the superintendent per statute.
Okay, thank you. And with that I look at this almost like the policy or the rule we were just talking about with the charter schools, where we have new management, we have a group that has understood there's some concerns, want to address it. I see that this is the same listening to Director Rasmussen. It sounds like our staff's already looking to address this with an internal policy. And given that a lot of it is a management versus a governance role, I would prefer to let staff address this. And then when we get the audit results back, if we need to address this in a different way, come back and do that. So I also would not like to continue these. I don't think that this is our role at this point. So the motion before us is that the committee continues items 1.10 and 1.11 to the August committee meeting. Any other discussion before we vote? Okay, Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Lear?
No.
And I'm also a no, so that motion does fail 2-1 with Member Hall being the yes vote. We have Chair Carey and Member Longacre absent. And with that, we've already talked about the sensitive material timeline. So do we cover all of our agenda items?
Yes, we have. Move that we adjourn.
So, okay, motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Chair?
Oh, wait,
Do we
Elise?
need to
need to
do
vote on those?
13, Elise?
Yeah, I think we need to do the underlying motion for the two policies.
So I was going to say, I think we still need to vote on those policies.
I was.
Oh, I see, because we didn't postpone
hasty.
them.
You didn't postpone it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. Okay, so either vote for them, or if there's no motion, then nothing happens.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that correction. I apologize. So we will move to item 1.10. Do we have any discussion or motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item 1.11. This is Action Board Policy 6002, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission Staff Requirements. Is there any discussion or motion with 1.11? Okay, so we'll move on. 1.13, so policy request items. Is this the one, Elise, that you have anything for us on this?
I do not. This would just be an appropriate place if any of you had policy requests.
Oh, that's what you were using that for.
Yeah, Elise, there is one. Last year we made a policy request in our UPAC rules. There was a section, it was
Mhm.
like section 6 of one of the rules. And one of the discussions that we had was that we were getting so many referrals because LEAs had to refer everything. So even if a parent called and complained about a teacher upset about a grading practice or whatever, that all had to be referred to UPAC if it was a complaint. And I'm wondering if there might be an appetite of this committee to move that forward. And the reason being is that I do think that that is one of our bottlenecks of UPAC. Since we've done that, it's added so many complaints that aren't having findings to it, and it's taking up so much energy and time. And we know that we're trying to be more effective and efficient. And if we already know that those, even if an LEA would never want to refer it, and we're not trusting our LEAs to do that, it just, in my opinion, it adds an extra layer of investigation that is not even necessary if we already know it's not going to be a complaint. Remember, Lair?
Yes, I think the board discussed this and voted on it at one point. So you're asking to revisit it is what I was,
Yes.
that was the
Yes, we
question.
did. Yes, and that's what I was asking, if there was appetite from either you or from Member Hall to maybe support that moving forward. We did vote as a board last year to make that recommendation. The legislature didn't act on it, but I
No,
do think that
I
it's something
think the
that I would
board,
like to reconsider.
oh, sorry for interrupting. I think the board vote failed on the board is what I'm recalling, Amanda. No?
I think it was one of our priorities, wasn't it, Elise? Wasn't it one of our legislative priorities?
I thought the
I
vote
think
failed.
so. I'm looking right now, but I believe that Board Member Bogus had made that one and it was listed on the top 10 priorities for policy.
And it didn't pass. And so it did pass the board, but was
Yes.
not picked up by the legislature.
Correct.
That's
Then-
correct. Yes, but I do believe that the legislature will be considering some policy or some law on UPAC, especially since they're doing a audit. And I think it's an item piece that we should be considering.
I support that. I think that would be a really great issue to bring back to the legislature and see if there's interest this year.
Okay.
Do you want to make that motion, Amanda? Or
I will. I think I was going to go back and look at one of our other previous board meetings.
There was a code change though that would have to be made. It wasn't
Yes.
just okay.
I believe it was this part of code right here, and I'm going to put the code reference in here, but it was that the educator, that an LEA notify the state board, UPAC, and the educator of any complaints from a parent against an educator alleging a violation of educator licensing standards.
Yes.
What happened was the state board put it in rule and then the legislature enshrined it in code, which means the board doesn't have any flexibility to modify that as they see how how things are
Right.
proceeding. And so I think
Right.
Board Member Bogus's motion was to take that out of codes. The board would have flexibility in revisiting that in
Okay.
rule.
Yes. Yes. So I would like to direct staff to prepare a policy request to repeal Utah Code subsection 53E-6-604 parentheses 6. And from my understanding, this would then help. So then if there was a violation, LEAs would still be required to report to UPAC any violation that they decided was an educator standard violation. Is that correct,
Yes.
Ben and Elise? But this may help save us time and money and stop this bottleneck we have of items that are, and it's not even just for UPAC. It's also when we talk about how much it costs for administrators at LEAs, it takes more administrators to investigate and report all of these things. And if they already investigate and there's nothing to report, but they're required by law to report it anyways, I don't think it's a good use of our time or resources. And I think it also does a disservice to those that are going through UPAC to have such a slow process. So any discussion to that motion? Okay. So the motion is to direct staff to prepare policy requests to repeal Utah Code subsection 53E-6-604, parentheses 6. We will do a roll call vote. Member Hall,
Yes.
Member Lear,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. So that motion passes unanimously with Chair Carey and Member Longacre absent. Any other policy request discussions?
Not today.
Not today.
Okay. All right. With that, I will take a final motion.
Now I can move to adjourn. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for, sorry for cutting
Motion
you
to
off.
adjourn. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right. We are officially adjourned. Thank you for your time
Thank
and thank
you.
you, staff.